Anyone, anywhere can have a great idea for the future. But when all of our ideas, thoughts and experiences come together to inspire researchers, that's when we create a better future for all. Join Ireland's biggest brainstorm by visiting creatingourfuture.ie and tell us what researchers in Ireland should explore to create a better future.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Keogh and welcome to the community activation event of Creating Our Future, a Government of Ireland campaign to stimulate a national conversation that generates ideas from the public to inform the direction of research in Ireland. We're delighted to be joined today by a host of what we term stakeholder organisations. These are community and voluntary organisations, government agencies and other membership and public-facing bodies from right across the country whose support is pivotal to ensuring the campaign reaches as many segments of Irish society as possible, which is what we want. Now, some of the organisations have been involved in the campaign since its planning stage, and some are recently engaging with us, but we're absolutely delighted that you're all here today to support Creating Our Future. So before we kick off with today's agenda, I'd first like to give a very warm welcome to Simon Harris, Minister for Higher and Further Education, Research, Innovation and Science. He has brought forward this campaign, and as most of you will know, it's the first of its kind in Ireland, and his department is leading on it. Minister Harris, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time. I know how passionate you are about creating our future. I'd love if you were able to provide your thoughts on it for us.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning. I think I have a difficulty turning on my camera, but perhaps you could do that on your end. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. It's great to be with you at what is a very important day for creating our future. And as Ireland's first ever Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, I'm really delighted to encourage everyone to engage with and to support creating our future. This is a really important opportunity, an opportunity for everyone to give their ideas on how we can make our country better for all, and to think about the opportunities and the challenges you face and how they could be addressed by our research community. I think perhaps in the past there was a view that research and science was something that happened over there. It was somebody else's business. But if anything, I think the COVID pandemic has shown us how important research and science is to every aspect of our lives. And what we now want to do is we want to harness that focus, that spotlight that's been applied to research and science and say, well, hang on a second, if research and science was able to show us the way out of the global pandemic, was able to get people getting their lives back on track after that pandemic, what else can research and science help? What are the big challenges and opportunities that we face, and how can we ask our research community to work to resolve those issues? And I think if you look at science, the environment, health, education, poverty, the arts, diversity, inclusion, there's so many areas here, and all ideas are welcome. No matter how big an idea, how small an idea, they can all help inspire researchers to help make a better future for Ireland. And I think we've had a lot of time to think over the last year or so, and I think a lot of us have been thinking, what sort of society do we want to live in? We've clearly, as I said, seen the benefit of expertise. We've done well as a country when we followed expert advice, when we've worked with research and worked with science. But perhaps the COVID pandemic has somewhat temporarily drowned out other massive challenges face in our country, in our community, and in our world: climate, food security, the future of how we work, even how we grow old and age in our communities. And we need to consider and urgently find collective solutions for this. So we are now carrying out this national conversation, and you're right, I'm so excited about it. I think it is a major opportunity to connect with civic society, to bring the general public and the research community closer together. And the conversation is going to do a couple of things. It's going to talk about what's already happening and showcase all the good stuff that's happening in the Irish research, science and innovation community. And crucially though, it's also going to ask the public, the people who pay for and fund the research, what are the challenges that you think are the most important? It'll give you an opportunity to input your ideas, to see what you'd like future research undertaken on, and to collaborate with Ireland's world-class leading researchers, innovators and public policy makers. So I suppose my appeal to everyone this morning is to be bold as a nation, think big, capture curiosity, capture ideas. There's no such thing as a stupid idea. Let's get as many ideas going. Let's get the juices flowing in terms of the conversation. And I'd really encourage everyone throughout our country to get involved in what I think is a unique conversation. Take the opportunity as a community group, as a representative group, local level or national level, host an event, host a discussion, have a debate, build this into your schedule of work in your organisation for the year and give us your views on the things you care about. Equally, I'd encourage our research community who rely so much on ideas to drive discovery and innovation, to provide expertise and to provide advice and to help contribute to and inform the discussion and to support us, the public, the lay people, in this national brainstorm. So through Creating Our Future, I invite everyone to harness that understanding. And anyone can have an idea for research. It doesn't need to be a fully developed idea. Mine rarely are. We can come up with any idea, throw it out there. It can be based on an opportunity you faced, a challenge you faced in your own life, in someone you know's life, in your community, in Ireland, or indeed anywhere in the world. It can just be something that you're curious about, something you're saying, I always wonder why this was that way. Ask that question. And everything we receive is going to be inputted into a report. It's a report that's going to go to government, and it's going to go along with expert commentary and recommendations by our expert committees. We'll then consider the report, and I want you to know it will inform our thinking and our development and our policy in this country on research and innovation. And of course, researchers will use the outcome of the report to inform their current or future research. And any additional funding we target into this area will be targeted to the ideas that are generated through this report. So I'm really sorry for some reason that my video won't start. It says the host has stopped it, but you're not missing much. Anyway, I'm sitting here in my office looking down the Zoom camera, but I don't think it can see me. Maybe that's one of the questions I should put into the national brainstorm. But I do hope that everybody attending today is going to find out all that they need to support the national conversation, find out how you can get involved. And I know today you're going to be provided with insights and tools so you can meaningfully engage in Creating Our Future. I really look forward to hearing and seeing about the events and the discussions you're holding. I look forward to participating in as many as I possibly can. Please do promote the website, get people to log onto the website and log their ideas, submit their ideas there as well. And I want to assure you that I will continue to be taking a really personal interest in this, working very closely with our advisory forum, with government departments, state agencies, community groups, research funders, and our higher education sector and researchers. And we're going to give this the time, the focus, and the priority that it deserves and requires to make this a conversation that we can all be proud of, and a legacy arising from the COVID pandemic for research, innovation, and science in Ireland. So thank you so much for having me here this morning. I hope your deliberations are very good.
Great. Yeah, I think we can all agree that Creating Our Future has fantastic potential to really engage the public in research and generate some key insights for Ireland's research policy. So we want to give a big thank you to Minister Harris for his valuable time this morning. We would have liked to have seen him, but I guess Zoom's still catching some of us out even after the 18 months that we've had dealing with it. But we do thank the Minister for his time. I know he's busy this morning. I suppose before we move on, just to give a few nuts and bolts of where we are with the campaign, many of you will know it officially launched at the end of July. Over the course of August, the Public Engagement Campaign team has been busily putting together the strategy as well as activity and event plans to engage the public between now and the closing date for submissions of ideas, which, as you know, is the end of November. So we have moved into the activation stage of public engagement of Creating Our Future. So over the course of the next 90 minutes or so, various members of the campaign team will outline some background information to the campaign. They'll give us updates on its rollout across the country and provide practical steps that your organisation can take to both support and benefit from the campaign in terms of running events and activities with your members and the general public. Now, in terms of our agenda for the rest of the session, I will shortly invite Dr. Ruth Freeman, Director of Science for Society at Science Foundation Ireland. We'll be discussing the overall campaign process with Ruth. That will be followed then by a conversation with Seamus Carey, who's the campaign's public engagement consultant, to outline the campaign's planned activities and events. Then we'll have Julie Byrne, chair of the campaign's advisory forum, to discuss the importance of stakeholder organisations like yourselves in making this campaign a success and how you can benefit from it. And we'll then return to Seamus to run through the practical steps you can take to get involved in the campaign, run a campaign session and generate ideas from your members or the public. And then we will open the floor for a Q&A session at the end. And just to remind you, at all times throughout this session, you can ask questions of our speakers. Do use Zoom's Q&A function. Just click the Q&A button, type in your question, type in your name, and I'll do my best to ask as many as I can as we get through this session. And if you are chatting about this morning's event on social media, don't forget to use the hashtag Creating Our Future. Now, I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Ruth Freeman, who's the Director of Science for Society at Science Foundation Ireland. Ruth, thanks so much for being with us this morning. You're very welcome along.
Good morning, Susan. Thanks for having me.
So, Ruth, we might start. Can I ask you a little bit about I suppose your involvement in create our future happen from the kind of get-go. Tell us about your involvement.
Well, this has been a process that we've been thinking about for years at Science Foundation Ireland, but as the Minister said, it's a Government of Ireland campaign. It was an idea that we brought to him, and you can see he's a great champion for it. So Science Foundation Ireland are now running it on behalf of his department. But we have a steering committee overseeing the whole project, and that involves ourselves, representatives from the department, the Irish Research Council, the Irish Universities Association, the Technological Higher Education Authority. So all of the bodies that are really involved in Ireland in making research happen are there at the steering committee level to oversee the project. But as well as that, you mentioned Julie Byrne and our wonderful advisory forum. So we're really delighted. I hope some of them are here on the call today. We've already about 80 organisations, societal, business groups, civil groups, who are getting involved to advise us on the running of the campaign, but also to get involved so they can get their own ideas submitted to that final report. As well as that, we have a Gen Z advisory forum because, of course, research is about the future, and the campaign is called Creating Our Future. So it was really, really important for us to have a campaign that engaged with younger people, and they felt they could be heard through this campaign. What were their ideas that they wanted to get to government to see what new knowledge do we need to make the society that they want in the future? So we felt that was really critical. So those groups will be involved throughout the campaign, and as we'll get into the detail, there'll be all sorts of events and opportunities to have discussions about what kind of ideas should go into the campaign, and we hope there'll be thousands of them that come in.
Yeah, absolutely. We heard the Minister say there, excuse me, how passionate he is about the whole project in general. I suppose, what's making you so excited about it? What element of it?
Well, I mean, I've worked in research for nearly 20 years. It's always been my passion. And I suppose watching what's happened in society over the last 18 months, I mean, in some ways, I think it's a really good time for us to have this conversation because we've all watched research in real time as we've sought solutions for the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
In many ways, that opened the door to what research is all about. I mean, it was always amazing to me to listen to the airwaves and hear members of the public ringing in, talking about preprints. Well, why did scientists say that a month ago and now they're saying something else? And there was a whole discussion about the process of how we get to results in research. And I think that opened the door a chink on a very specific area, which was kind of medical and health. But research really informs everything that we do. And, you know, even if you think about evidence-based policy or, health or well-being, but our environment, how we work, how we live, how we choose to educate our students. I mean, there's a lot of conversations now about the best ways to assess students. I mean, the only way you can answer these questions is by doing research. So the research impacts on everything that we do and really should inform our decisions if we want to make good and thoughtful decisions about the path to the future. And in reality, there's some technologies that we've engaged with a lot, but there's other technology that just has quietly developed in the background. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not, because actually the public are often the end users. They are the biggest stakeholders in all of this.
Yes.
They often pay for it if it's public research. So, I feel what motivates me is that people have a democratic right to have their voice heard about research, because research informs the future.
So we're looking for people's ideas, and we're hearing the word idea being said a lot. And I suppose people might like to know, what do we mean by an idea? Like, are you looking for research ideas? And I suppose the worry for people that might want to get involved is there such a thing as a bad idea,
Well, I don't think so. And I think that the Minister said that before. And in reality, as you say, the portal is already open, so we're already seeing ideas coming in. And they're different kinds of things. So sometimes they might be quite broad statement areas. People are clearly going to be talking about climate change. I mean, there's things coming through around women's health, around the environment. So those are just broad topic areas. But even if that's the level of people's idea around where they want to see research focused, I think that's still really informative, because it indicates to government and to researchers that these are areas. It's a guide that these are areas that the public are really, really passionate about, and they want to see more knowledge in those areas. But also we will, I think, have people coming in with quite specific ideas, and those ideas might relate to a challenge that they face in their lives that, it drives me mad when I go to buy something online and the sizing is all wrong. Like, why can't you look at research into that?
Yes, the people just literally think there must be a way around this.
Yeah, there must be a way to fix that, to reduce waste on people buying clothes that don't fit them. Or, I'm just really interested in my local area. I'd love to know why that wall is there and what is it. Or I've always been fascinated by the solar system. Or, I have a medical condition and this particular thing is impossible for me to do and I want to be able to do it. So it really could be anything. And I think that's the fascinating bit about all of this, to see what ideas people come back with. I mean, researchers themselves, it often amazes me when you go out and talk to researchers and the field that they're in, there's often some personal connection to it. So you will find sometimes researchers that work in cancer research have been touched in their life by cancer, or people who work in environmental issues come from a background where that's fed into it. But remember, that's only researchers building on their own experiences. What we want to do is now broaden the base of all those experiences and give those to researchers as inspiration, really.
And I guess it's important for people to remember they don't need to come up with a solution, because that might be the fear that people think they have to have the answer. They have to have the idea, and after that, the research is what we do to try and get some sort of an answer. I suppose for people then who want to actually submit an idea, might already have one, tell us how they go about doing that.
Yeah, well, there is a portal online, as I mentioned. So if people go to creatingourfuture.ie, there's a very simple web form where you just submit your idea. It's just a little free text box, and you can give us a little bit of information about where you are in the country as well, which will be useful. There will also be some free postcards rolling out during the course of the campaign, but Seamus will fill you in a bit more detail on all of that later. There will be events around the country too, where people will have the opportunity to submit. But as well as the submitting, though, we do want people to have the conversations. That's just as much part of it. So whether it's at the dinner table, in your organisation, wherever it is, have the conversations, but then do get those ideas up onto the portal as well, because we really want them.
What will happen then, Ruth, after the ideas are sent in? What will happen then?
Well, as the Minister said, there will be an expert committee that will look at these. I mean, clearly, with thousands of ideas, we sort of need to parse those together in a meaningful way and put some recommendations around them. So there will be a series of expert committees with representation from all different areas of research, and then a final committee that will craft that report that will go to government. As the Minister said, and what we've seen with this type of exercise in other countries, that's kind of a book of inspiration for researchers, but also, it will inform policy for research in Ireland, it will inform the direction, and we are certainly hoping that additional funding streams on top of what we have will also go directly in to tackling some of the problems and issues and just interesting ideas that the public come up with.
So tell us what success looks like for you then with the campaign, in terms of maybe the amount of ideas that might come in, or I know you mentioned how important it's going to be that we really do reach, all corners of Ireland, that we make sure every different type of person gets involved. So is that the measure of success for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, certainly inclusivity was always meant to be at the heart of this campaign. I mean, there's parts of society that kind of often get their voice heard and might feed into things like research. And I think the measure of success here is, do we make those conversations, do we inspire, and do we see those conversations happening in places in society where they don't usually happen, and then do we get those ideas in and can we do something with them? But so we want really broad input from everyone. This is an invitation to everyone to have their voice heard.
Okay, I'm sure you have an answer to this, but what is your idea for the campaign?
Oh God, I sort of feel as someone who funds research, I shouldn't really pick one area, but and I'm sure I'll probably submit loads. But I think, for me, I'm really interested at the moment in the circular economy, and I'm interested in research as to how we kind of move away from a very single-use society to a circular economy. I think that's one of the key issues we need to be looking at.
Okay, brilliant. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your time this morning. And just to say to people on the call, we apologise for the difficulties that we had with Minister Harris's line, but those things can't be helped. So we want to thank Dr. Ruth Freeman, Director of Science at the Society at Science Foundation Ireland. It was great to have her with us this morning. Lots of great overview and insights from Ruth there. I now want to welcome Seamus Carey. Seamus joined the campaign back in July as a public engagement consultant and has been working with the team to develop the campaign's public engagement strategy and activity and engagement plan. Seamus, you're very welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here, Susan.
So Seamus, we're hearing a lot talked about ideas, but also we hear a lot these two words, public engagement, and it really and truly is at the heart of the campaign. We really want the public to engage with this campaign.
Absolutely. So public engagement, as you've said, is really the heart of the campaign. It's what everything we're doing is about. And I think, as Ruth might have mentioned, really there are two metrics of success or two elements that we're focusing on. The first is we've set a target of generating over 10,000 ideas. So that's a big number, but we're confident and hopeful that we can get there. But more importantly, as Ruth also mentioned, it's about an inclusive campaign that really connects with diverse audiences from across Ireland and builds awareness and conversation about the importance and impact of research. And everything we're doing has those two objectives in mind. So we're generating ideas and ensuring that we reach as many different
people
parts of the country as possible.
The strategy then for the campaign, Seamus, in terms of reaching those two objectives, what's the plan?
Yes, so I think when I joined the campaign and we looked at how we would make this a success and how we would really engage the public, I think the first challenge we saw was that the topic can be seen as academic and it has the potential to be potentially inaccessible for some people. And I know some people that I've shared the question with look and go, I don't really have an idea, or I don't know what to submit. And so we're trying to combat that in all of our activities, because we are really, really confident and do believe that everyone has an idea worth submitting. And the campaign is all about eliciting those ideas from the public in a really creative and dynamic way.
So using creativity and being dynamic. So what exactly does that mean then?
Yeah, so I guess there's really two answers to that. The first is about the strategy for public engagement, and the second is about the activities we're going to do. So I've prepared some slides, which may be on screen at the moment, and I'll talk you through this strategic element of it first. And so the first is the importance of developing an understanding of research and researchers. And so we want to include and involve researchers in all our events, bringing their work to life and facilitating conversations between them and the public. The second is that context to the question, which is really important. I know Ruth mentioned this as well, but the idea to give people some kind of a sense of what we're looking for. It can be based on an opportunity, it can be based on a challenge in your own life, for your community, for Ireland, for the world, or it can be something that you're just curious or deeply passionate about. And those little prompts have helped people better understand the question, and we use those a lot in our events and our discussions. I know my nephew focused on how can we save the bees. For some reason, he's obsessed with bees at the moment. And my parents were really interested in research into the rates and prevalence of autism in Ireland. And so those little prompts really engage them to think of ideas, because sometimes the big question, although it's really freeing, can be too free, and you're kind of wondering, what exactly can I think of? We're then also looking at thematic areas. And so I know when I first asked this, as I've mentioned to family and friends, there was a little bit of silence around, what exactly are you looking for? What can I do? The prompts helped a little bit, but we've also developed some thematic areas. And these are really broad areas that are there to inspire ideas rather than lead people, and it's to get people thinking about them in their everyday life. So these are ideas or categories about, health and well-being, the environment, community development, and so forth. And we'll touch on those a little later. The next piece is about utilising topics that are a connection or a route into the campaign. So for some members of the public, again, it's trying to make this campaign accessible and really finding ways to engage them in it in a way that speaks to them. So we have ambassadors we'll be using throughout the campaign. And for example, if there's a sporting ambassador, I know the Minister will be announcing these ambassadors later, so I don't want to steal any of his thunder here. If we're dealing with a sporting ambassador, perhaps we can have a discussion that starts on sport, looks at ideas from the sporting world, and then goes broader and looks at what other areas of the public's life who are at that event or at that conversation may want to submit. And it's the same for our stakeholders who are running events. You may want to start with a topic that's close to your organisation's heart and use that as a route in, and then open up the floor to other ideas and topics that your members or the public want to mention. And the final piece, I guess, is Gamification, it's a word we use a lot in public engagement, but the idea here is to make the campaign fun and engaging. So we'll talk a little bit later on about our roadshow, which will be going all around the country. There is a spin the wheel competition at it. We'll be asked to submit an idea on a topic it lands on. You can win a prize. There'll be cups of coffee and tea and so forth. And then we also have a bursary available for our stakeholders that are running events. If you need to provide prizes, gift vouchers, ways to incentivize your members or the public to get involved, we're happy to provide that, and we'll talk about that later. And this is particularly for audiences, organizations that are targeting perhaps young people or harder to reach groups. So
that's how you're going to bring those concepts to life, and there'll be more information, won't there, in the information packs that will be sent out. So tell me about your involvement, I guess your motivation to be involved. You're obviously very passionate about the campaign. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I guess there's two things or a couple of things I can mention. First is I think it's a really exciting campaign. It's the first time it's been done in Ireland, and it really has the potential to bridge any perceived gulf between the public and research. I know sometimes as a layperson I can see research as something that happens over there. It's very brainy people in white coats in labs, and we want to change that perception that actually research happens every day on every area of your life, and it has huge impact on our quality of life as a nation. And I think trying to find ways to engage the public with that is really important, and that's why I'm so excited about the campaign. I'd love to also just talk you through the activities we're doing. I think it's important to give people who may not be familiar with our campaign yet a little bit of an overview of those. So we have our advertising and PR, so you will have seen our little 20-second advertisement at the start of this event. That's on TV at the moment. We also have radio advertisements and press advertisements, and there's a PR campaign being activated around all our events and activities. We then also have our national roadshow, and this, as I mentioned, is a coffee truck, a Creating Our Future coffee truck that will be going all around the country, engaging with people on the street and ensuring that they can submit and activate their ideas. We'll have researchers available to speak to them, explain their work and provide inspiration and have conversations about research. And as you can see from our timeline, it'll be operating over 4 weeks. We're going to 33 locations in 26 counties, so the bus driver's going to be tired. I think I'm going to be tired too, but it's a really great way of bringing this to the people. So that's our roadshow. We then have our thematic events, and these will be run with our ambassadors. So there's 6 ambassadors that are being worked on at the moment and will be unveiled shortly. And we're hoping to do virtual and in-person events with them. So depending on their area of expertise or interest, we'll have an event that caters for their audience. And as we said, provides a route for the public into the campaign. We then have our stakeholder events and activities, which is what we're talking about today. And I'm super, super excited to have so many community and volunteer groups on the call today. These groups represent every aspect of Irish society, and it's really, really great to have them here because they are the route to really engaging in those hard-to-reach groups. And in other activities, we have a schools outreach program we're working on, and lots of other activities that we'll be able to update you on throughout the campaign. So
covered all bases and coming to a town near you very soon.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put you on the spot like I did with Ruth. What is your idea for the campaign?
What is my idea? I've had lots of ideas because I've had to be in lots of brainstorms with family and friends about this. The one that was in my mind this morning as I was prepping for this was I was leaving my apartment. I live in the city centre here in Dublin, and I bumped into a neighbour on the corridor and we'd never met before. And I suddenly realised, I live in the city centre. I always want to live in the city centre. I love living there, but there can be a little bit of isolation and a sense of not feeling part of a community. And that was the first time I'd met that neighbour on the corridor. So I thought perhaps there can be some research into how do we build really sustainable communities in city centres? Because often it can be a transient population of students or young workers. What can we do to build that sense of a community? So that's the question that I'd submit.
Brilliant, that's a great idea. Okay, well, Seamus is going to join us a little later. You'll be back with me later on, but thank you for your insights there on that. I want to now welcome Julie Byrne. Julie is Global Head of External Collaboration Programmes at Nokia Bell Labs and is the chair of the Creating Our Future Advisory Forum. Julie is joining us virtually this morning. Julie, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Susan. I'm delighted to be here. And I think, like the Minister, I'm not sure that I have video with you this morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, so thank you for that. Listen, let's start by, you maybe tell us a little bit about your role, Julie, as chair of the Advisory Forum and why you got involved in the campaign.
Sure. Well, Susan, I really am delighted to be here this morning. And maybe let me start a little bit with why I got involved. And like Ruth described earlier, I do have a passion for research. I certainly have experienced firsthand the impact that it has on our everyday lives. And it's not only the pandemic that has shown us how important research is, but coming from an environment like Nokia Bell Labs, I really have seen research come to life. And actually, if you think about how we use our phones and our tablets today, we use them in ways that really were the stuff of science fiction not that long ago, although I may be revealing my age somewhat, although I'm not on video. But I mean, who amongst us would have thought that, we could be walking down the street having a video conversation with somebody? I mean, that really was science fiction, and it's not that long ago. So I've seen research come to life. I've seen how it really transforms how we work, how we live. So certainly from inside a research organization, I have that passion. But on the other side of it, I've also had the privilege of being a judge at the BT Young Scientist for the past number of years. And really, that is a privilege to experience the curiosity and passion of students, to experience ideas from outside research that really the students bring each year to make the world a better place. And it's phenomenal. It is energizing. It's just amazing to get to meet so many people and really the broad problems that they tackle. And what I've seen in those two roles, bringing our research, so Bell Labs researchers and some of the students together, when you have those conversations, they really do inspire each other. And when I heard about this campaign, I really felt what an amazing opportunity to have that kind of conversation, but at a national scale and in a much broader context. As Seamus has just said, it really is an opportunity to build a bridge between every corner of our society and our research community. It's really, listening to the Minister again this morning, and every time I hear him talk about this campaign, I really am excited and enthused by the energy he's bringing. But it's also a real opportunity for our collective curiosity and imagination to inform future research policy in Ireland. And I think this is just such a great opportunity. And the other side of it is it's not, it's broader than science research. This is really all research. So the context is really just so exciting. And what a perfect moment to have this kind of conversation. So that was the other part for me was, as we are emerging from the pandemic, we've really seen that real impact of research. But as we start to think about rebuilding our lives, rebuilding our communities, shaping our future, what a perfect moment to ask questions and to bring ideas. So for all of those reasons, I really was very excited to get involved in the campaign. And the role. Yeah, sorry, Susan. Yeah.
No, just to ask you specifically, Julie, I suppose, Seamus mentioned it there, and I suppose I'm sure you're delighted to hear how many of the stakeholder organisations that we actually have on the call today, because I guess it shows that there is a huge interest in it, and that's something I guess that we can all be really, really happy about. I suppose I want to play devil's advocate this morning and ask you, on behalf of the people on the call, what's in this campaign for them, do you think?
Absolutely. And I really am delighted that we have so many of our stakeholder organisations represented, many of whom, as you heard from Ruth as well, are already engaged with the advisory forum and working hard to make sure that we do reach every corner of society. But what's really in it for you as a stakeholder organisation is to play a part, to really make sure that your community are part of a national conversation. This is a real opportunity, as you heard from the Minister, to inform the thinking, to inform the policy. And this is an opportunity for your stakeholder organisation to have your ideas and lived experience contribute to that policy. There's the potential for additional government funding. So this is very real and very tangible. And certainly, as Seamus also mentioned, there is support available to help enable your communities to participate.
So let me ask you, Julie, then, in terms of this call today, what is the ask for the people on the call, for the stakeholders listening in? What's your ask to them?
So I really have three asks. One, I think, assign a campaign champion to work with the management team and liaise in very, in practical ways around the logistics and of events and so on. The second ask I have is to organise events. Now, sometimes I think when we hear events, we think of large formal gatherings. Really, events can be simple brainstorms within your community with family and friends. It can be virtual sessions. It can be that you incorporate the Creating Our Future campaign into existing planned events. But please do support and get mobilised around organising those events and capturing the ideas. And the third ask that I would have is that you continue to promote Creating Our Future activities on all of your social media or digital channels. So support the roadshow and just keep. It's really important. This is the community that can bring this campaign to life. And I think, again, it is such an important opportunity. It's such an amazing opportunity that we can do this in Ireland. But we need your leadership to really bring the campaign to life across various communities, break down barriers that might inhibit people from taking part. As you've heard already, you don't need to know what research is. You just need to have the question, have the idea, and every input counts.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good advice and a reminder to people on the call. If you are taking to social media about today's event, do use the hashtag Creating Our Future. Julie, I can really hear the passion in your voice about the whole campaign. Can you sum up for me, though, what your big hope is?
I really hope, Susan, that the outcome of this campaign has a lasting impact. I really hope that we can create an outcome that will inspire our research community, our policymakers, and our communities. But we'll only achieve that if we have the broadest possible participation. So we need to reach every corner of society, get as many people engaged in this as possible, because the voices and having those voices heard is really what's going to generate the kind of outcome that will have that lasting impact.
Yeah, it's really important. I feel like you probably have 10 to 20 ideas, but I'm going to ask you for one submission for Creating Our Future. What's yours, Julie?
So yeah, the idea, well, maybe not 10 to 20, Susan, but I have a couple that I'm thinking about. But the one that I think I will share this morning is actually, I suppose, aspects of global and very local to me. From my accent, many of you can probably hear I come from the Midlands of Ireland, and the transformation of our peatlands is something that is at the forefront of my mind these days. And obviously we are considering that in the context of climate action and sustainability. And there are also the economic impacts. But there's a huge aspect of the transformation of our peatlands that really speaks to a way of life and cultural heritage. And so my idea or my submission really would be that I'd like to reach out to our arts and humanities to explore how we define a new cultural heritage around the peatlands, because again, it's really important, I think, as we look at that transformation, that we don't lose sight of the way of life that's associated with them.
Yeah, really good idea, absolutely. Julie, I think you're going to be back with us in a little while to answer to help us answer some questions. But for now, thank you so much, Julie Byrne, Global Head of External Collaboration Programmes at Nokia Bell Labs and Chair of the Creating Our Future Advisory Forum. So many insights there, and I think you'll all have found what Julie said to be very inspiring. I certainly did. I am delighted to be joined back by Seamus, who's joined me back on the couch. We're going to talk a little bit more now, Seamus, about the practical steps, because I think this is really important for people on the call. They might be thinking, okay, I want to set up a session, I want to do an activity, I want to run an event, but how exactly do I go about doing that?
Absolutely. And I think that's the pivotal question for this part of the conversation. And this morning we've been really great at setting out the campaign, explaining why it's important to get involved, but now it's down to the nuts and bolts, I guess, of what do you actually have to do.
Yeah, and we heard Julie mention there the campaign champion and the other ways of promoting the campaign. So take us through what people can do.
Absolutely. So first, if I say there are some info packs available. So we've developed a very thorough information pack for stakeholder organisations. It outlines all of the aspects of the things that I'm going to go through now in much more detail than we have time to go through today. It also links to brainstorming guides, how to run events, copies of our logo, our font, all of that information, which will be made available to you all after this call. We'll provide a recording of this event and those info packs, and they'll be sent out to you on Monday. But let's just run through, so we'll give you a sense of what's, I guess, included in them. And I guess the ask really of how can an organisation get involved? Well, there's 5 things, and Julie has mentioned some of them there. The first is a campaign champion. The second is organise events. Third is list your event on our website and get support from us to make it a success. Promote the campaign and then engage your family and friends. So I'm going to quickly take you through each of those and give you the practical steps involved. So I guess first on a campaign champion, what we found is lots of organisations in campaigns like this really want to get involved, love the sound of it, love the concept, and really feel like there's a fit between their organisation and the campaign. But sometimes we can have difficulty in then really activating it unless there's a person responsible internally in the organisation. So assigning a campaign champion is super important. It's someone that we can engage with, we can provide information to, we can provide all those materials to, and we can support you to run your events. So there is an online form to sign up as an organisation's campaign champion that's listed in our info packs, and you can go through that on Monday.
Brilliant. So more detail on that on Monday in terms of maybe putting it out there in your organisation, asking is somebody interested in becoming the champion, and then you can follow those steps, and that's your sort of person that you can liaise with.
Absolutely. And that person doesn't have, it's not a huge onerous task just to make sure that we're not scaring people away at this point. It's purely to be a link between your organisation and us, that you're there to ensure that the campaign messages are spread to your members internally or your networks, and that you can run some events with us. So it's a very hands-on but hands-off role. And there will also be, we'll invite you then to a weekly drop-in session, so you can come and go as you please. There's a weekly drop-in session on Thursdays for all the campaign champions. Yeah. We will give you updates on the campaign. We'll let you know if there's any new messages, if there's any new documents, and we can answer any questions you're having. And so that's drop in and drop out. It's 45 minutes that is set every week, but you can drop in and out of the call as you need to. So that's the campaign.
So that's the first one.
Champions, yeah. The second then, I guess, is organising events. And as both Julie and Ruth mentioned, sometimes when we hear that phrase, organise events, it sounds like a very big, onerous task as well. And we don't want it to be, because we think there's really great ways of integrating the campaign into things that you're already doing. So there's 3 types of of events that we're most interested in, that we think are the best fit between organisations, activities and our campaign. The first, I guess, is events and activities that target your staff or your colleagues. And so perhaps you have a weekly staff meeting, perhaps you have an away day organised, and you can integrate a brainstorm or tag a brainstorm of creating our future into that activity. Or perhaps you might want to organise a dedicated activity, a dedicated event for your staff and your colleagues around the campaign, aligned with our tagline of being Ireland's biggest brainstorm. So that's the first, it's staff and colleagues. Second is for events and activities that target your members or your network. So if you're a member-based organisation or if you're a network organisation, again, you might have some events already organised. You might have webinars or talks or meetings on potential topics already set up. And these could be topics that are of importance to your organisation. So perhaps you're doing something on bike safety going to school, with all the schools returning this month. And so you can tag a brainstorm onto that event, and you can utilise the people who are available at that event to also submit ideas, perhaps about school bike safety, but perhaps they can be on broader topics as well. Or you can run a dedicated session. So you can decide, actually, we're a youth-based organisation, we're going to run a dedicated brainstorm with our members, and we're going to align it with Ireland's biggest brainstorm, and that's another way.
Okay, we might talk a little bit more then about organising a brainstorm, but just if somebody is watching and they're thinking that they won't be able to do any of those things, there's a really key message there in terms of just having this conversation with people, getting the word out there. It's been mentioned before at the kitchen table, having out on a night, having a drink, being out, just to kind of bring up the campaign and maybe
absolutely,
ask people's ideas on it.
Your organisation may not be in a position to run a brainstorming session or to add it onto an event. Perhaps your events are already very structured and you can't find time in the agenda to do this. Then it's as simple as just giving information on the campaign to the members and asking them to submit their ideas using our web platform. And again, we have all the materials that you would need to send to your members, the slides to explain the campaign and so forth, all available in those info packs. And
you can get your event listed and the support, and that information will be there as well.
Absolutely. And the third type of event, that we didn't touch on there, were just if you're doing member events with the public. Same concept, you can tag a brainstorm on, or you can decide to run a dedicated event. The next then is listing your event and getting support. So once you've decided to do something with the campaign, if that's tagging a brainstorming onto an event or deciding to run a dedicated event, I guess first step is you can list the event with us on our website. So from the end of this month, there will be a very simple form online where you can submit the details of your event. It'll be listed on our website amongst all the other events taking place nationally, and we can promote it for you on our social and digital channels. At this point, while the web form is being set up, you can email us with your details of your event. It's events@sfi.ie, and that's where you can submit those details and we'll list it on our website. At the same time, you can ask us if you'd like to have a campaign spokesperson available for the event. We can happily provide that if it's of a sufficient size. Or you might want to have a researcher that's able to come to the event. So perhaps you're running an event for young people and you want a youth researcher available. We can happily provide one for you, and they can speak about their work, contextualize the campaign, show the impact of their work, and then use that as inspiration for your audience to generate ideas, but also have a real conversation between the public attendees of that event and the researcher. You can also let us know by email if you'd like to avail of any of our incentivizations. As we mentioned, we do have a budget available for vouchers and prizes if you want to encourage your members to attend an event that you're organising. We can also, if you're doing an in-person event and need to arrange transport for people, if you want to provide refreshments at an in-person event. I know as COVID guidelines are easing, more of those will be happening, so we're happy again to support on that. We don't have unlimited budgets, but we are happy to try and help where we can, particularly for events that are targeting young people or are targeting really hard to reach demographics. And then finally, we do have postcards available. So there are campaign postcards with a free post address. If you have some members that are not digitally savvy, if you want to have them available in your offices, or you want to send them out to some of your members by post, we can happily send those to you as well. So you can let us know that when you're registering your event by our online form or by email.
So all of the support is there, I guess, for people who want to get involved and organise something. I'm sure there will be people watching us today who will think, I absolutely do want to do that, but they might be worried about some pitfalls, or they might just want some, a little kind of bit of advice or bit of direction. Is there anything to really watch out for if you are going to maybe organise one of these bigger events, for example?
Absolutely, yeah. So we do have a brainstorming guide available, which I will get to in a couple of minutes. I guess one of the big things is, no matter what you're doing, if you're organising a brainstorm, if you're just letting people know about the campaign and asking them to submit their ideas, it's really about promoting our content and promoting the campaign. So the fourth ask we have of people is really to share our content. So all of our content will be on the department's Twitter and social channels. You can retweet that, you can share it with your members. And every Friday, we'll send an update around to all of our campaign champions with updates of the campaign that week and sample tweets and sample messages that they might want to seed with their members. Because we want to try and maintain momentum here.
Yeah, of course.
And ensure that people are constantly getting messages either from our advertising on television and radio or from those member organisations, or seeing our lovely branded coffee truck flying around the country for all of our events. And so really promoting the campaign through social and digital channels, and also inviting all of your members to either attend your events if you're organising them, or pop down to our roadshow or our thematic events. And we'll be constantly updating people on those events as they are organised and published on our website.
Okay, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, so family and friends, I guess, is the final part of the jigsaw here. So we're conscious of this term, the multiplier effect or the network effect. And so we're asking everyone that gets involved in the campaign. So if everyone on this call today went and had this discussion with their family and friends, even just 5 of them, that would have a huge multiplying effect. We would get 5 ideas from each of you, and each of those persons would then submit 5 ideas. And so it really starts that discussion. And these conversations are very simple. So I had a 50th birthday party in the garden. Well, it was a very small 50th birthday party, which was family over the summer for my brother. And we had these discussions amongst the family. And it started a really interesting discussion about opening up about opportunities and challenges in people's lives and in the community that we'd noticed. And it's a really interesting conversation to have. So have that conversation with your friends and family, have it with colleagues in work. If you have a book club, I know a lot of people are still doing Zoom calls with family and friends. Do those and use those as an opportunity to get ideas submitted. And you can simply ask people to submit ideas on the website, or you can run a mini brainstorming with them. And I think those brainstorms are really useful in terms of eliciting really good ideas and getting people to think beyond the obvious. Because as we mentioned, sometimes when you see the question, it's the first thing that jumps into your head. And those ideas can be great, but you also want to sometimes have the more thoughtful ideas that people have had a chance to think through. And so those brainstorms are super, super important in doing that.
Well, I think we've got a lot of questions in. Will we move to questions, or do you want...
Absolutely. So I do have some guides on how to run a brainstorm. I'd love to go through, but let's take some questions first.
Will we take some questions? We'll do the brainstorm first, and then we'll reconnect with Julie for the questions. So let's do the brainstorm then. So this is for people who want to take on a long or a bigger sort of brainstorming session, and you've got the tips.
Absolutely. So I guess we've talked there about tagging a brainstorm onto an event or running a full session of a brainstorm. And I guess people can hear that and go, well, what exactly do you mean? And so we're conscious that we want this to be an engaging and fun exercise, and we want it to be as simple as possible, because the more steps you have to go through to arrange this, the more difficult it becomes and the harder it is to run. So we have developed 2 guides. One is for a quick brainstorm. It takes 15 minutes, and it's suitable for tagging on to your existing meetings or events. And the second is a full brainstorm guide that takes 45 minutes, and that's suitable for if you're running a dedicated brainstorming event for the campaign. The first part to note, I guess, is it's always good to have a facilitator or someone in charge of those brainstormings, and that can be the campaign champion in this instance, or someone else in your organization that facilitates it. And so I guess we don't have time to go through both guides. You'll get those in your documentation on Monday. But if I quickly run through the full brainstorming guide, just to give you a sense of how we anticipate these to run. And I guess what I will mention is there are slide decks in your info packs which run through all of this and give you the actual slides that you can present to your audience during the brainstorm. So the first part is introduce the campaign. It's really important to give that sense of what's the campaign all about, what's the process, what happens to my idea when it's submitted. We have information on all that in the slide deck, and you can quickly run through that. It's 3 or 4 slides. It doesn't take very long. And if you are running a very big event, as we mentioned, we can provide a campaign representative that can do that for you at the event. Second part is really including and involving researchers in the conversation. So researchers play a really important part in this conversation. We don't want it to be just the public submitting ideas into the ether. We also want researchers to be able to explain their work and inspire ideas from the public. So if you're running an event, you can request, as we've mentioned, a researcher. We'll make them available for you in an area that suits your event, and they'll be able to talk about their work, about what research they do, about the impact of it, and they can be there to listen to the ideas that are being generated by your group and really start a conversation about it. The third part then is introducing the brainstorm. So it's about those principles of what makes a good brainstorm. It's really about every idea being valuable. And so we all know ourselves from doing brainstorms on either professional or personal circumstances. If you start discussing the ideas or debating them or saying, oh, I'm not sure about that, then you've kind of lost the run of yourselves. So it's always about hearing those ideas, because if someone's mentioned it, it's valuable.
Okay.
And you don't want anyone to feel like their idea hasn't been listened to or hasn't been given sufficient attention. And so you want to set those rules at the start. And we have some documents on that in our pack as well. You then want to provide the question. And so the question is, here it is on screen. It's tell us your idea for what researchers in Ireland should explore to create a better future. What we're suggesting first is just showing that question to people and letting them percolate on that and come up with at least 2 ideas. And you can prompt them by saying, you know, when you hear this question, what is the first thing that comes into your mind?
Okay.
And those ideas can be really, really important. You can then ask people to share those with the group if they're comfortable, and you can hear what people have said and what's inspired their particular idea. That's brainstorm 1, and that should take about 5 to 7 minutes. We then have brainstorm number 2. So once you've done that round, we then add in our prompts, which are here in the pink box. And that's your idea. It could be based on an opportunity or a challenge you see for yourself, your community, Ireland, or the world, or it could be a topic that you are curious or passionate about and would like researchers to explore. Once you've added on that contextual information, it can prompt some other ideas and people can start thinking of other things. And again, you give them a couple of minutes to jot down at least 2 additional ideas that they're thinking about based on this. And again, you can ask them to share them with the group if they're comfortable. It's always important to try and ask the people that haven't spoken in the first round to share their ideas, that you're really getting a sense of everyone being involved in it and not 1 or 2 people dominating the conversation. And it's important throughout this that people are recording their ideas themselves, either on their laptop, on a notebook, or with the old-fashioned pen and paper, which is useful as we go to submit at the end. We then have brainstorming number 3, which again takes 5 to 7 minutes. And this is utilizing our thematic areas. And so what you'll see on screen here is we've developed 8 thematic areas as an inspiration to people. And so they look at health and well-being, the environment, arts, culture, history and sport, community planning and development, people and social development, science and technology, business, employment in the economy, and then our wonderful other ideas bucket. And the idea here is that as you look through those and you begin to think, is there an opportunity? Let's say, for example, we take the environment. Is there an opportunity or a challenge you see for yourself, your community, Ireland, or the world in that category? And you might think, actually, it's about protecting a local wildlife species that's endangered. It might be about water quality. It might be about agriculture or fishing. But use the categories as a way to think about your life and think about those opportunities.
So they're really helpful if when somebody saw the first question, they think, I have no idea whatsoever,
Absolutely.
which I'm sure like a lot of people will think, I don't have an idea. But I guess then when you see the headings and you apply it to your own life or the life of your friends or where you live or the world or the country, I guess it does direct you.
Absolutely. And what's clear here is we don't want this to be leading, we want them to be inspirational. And so the idea is the categories are so broad and so all-encompassing that we think any idea that someone could have will fit into one. But there's also the other idea. So if somebody's looking, going, God, I had an idea about space.
Yeah, but it
I don't know
doesn't
where
fit
exactly
in.
it fits,
Yeah, it can go
then
in
it can
other
go in that
idea.
other
Okay.
bucket. And again, what you should do here again is give people, again, 5 minutes to pick one or two of those thematic areas that jump out of them and think about, is there an opportunity, a challenge you see for yourself, your community, Ireland or the world, or is it just something that you're curious or passionate about? And again, you can share those ideas and see what people have said. And sometimes in the best brainstorms, an idea of someone else will spark an idea of yourself. And so write all those down and make sure people are recording them as they're brainstorming. And again, you can bring in your researcher at the event to be discussing those ideas, seeing what they think of what people are submitting, and really starting a discussion about them.
So you could see from one brainstorm session, like a number of ideas been put in.
Absolutely. So we would anticipate for a session like that, people should have about 5 ideas at that point after 45 minutes of thinking. And again, we don't want people to have to go through their idea and begin to assess it or see if it makes sense or what the possible solution is for it. Because the focus is on you tell us your needs and your ideas, and it's up to researchers to figure out how to solve them, I guess. And so part number 8 then in the step, if we just go back to that previous slide, we've gone through our 3 brainstorming techniques. We then would ask people to pop on the website live in the event and submit their ideas. It's a very simple process, and you can also tag an organization in it. So if you've been involved in the campaign through an organization's event, you can list that organization, and then we'll know where some of these ideas have come from. And then we would ask people to do the wrap-up. So we would thank everyone for their involvement, get feedback, and ask them again, as we said, to pay it forward and do that process with their family and friends. So it's a very engaging 45-minute session. It's all about generating ideas, having discussion, ensuring that people feel comfortable in sharing their thoughts on the question.
So no major challenge that you or a kind of thing that you might want to be ready for at the start. If you follow this guide, you should have a successful brainstorm session.
Absolutely. There are, of course, some things to watch out for and some general rules that we set for brainstorms, and those are important to mention, I guess. And some of those really are about ensuring that it's a really accessible atmosphere and a really safe space. So we want to ensure that everyone feels included in a brainstorm. You're going to have people who are extroverts and will be thinking as they're speaking, and you'll have introverts that need a little bit of time to think about their idea. And so those have been designed to really work for both. You want to stress the importance of every idea is valuable, whether big or small. People sometimes think, and particularly Irish people, I know myself, I do this, we kind of go, oh, sure, my idea isn't really that great, it isn't that important, I wouldn't share it because it isn't good. Every idea is valuable here, big or small. we want to make sure that there's no criticism of ideas, and that's really important in creating that safe space that people are allowed to discuss the ideas but not criticize them. You should also ensure that you're preventing anyone from dominating or speaking too much in the conversation that excludes others. And that's where we're suggesting that, again, after each round of the brainstorm, you can ask people or different people to share their ideas. And if someone's already spoken, you can ask someone else. You can focus your ideas, again, on a topic that your event has been about, if you've tagged a brainstorm on, or if your organization is particularly interested in certain topics. You can talk about those and submit ideas based on those, but it's also great to widen the conversation and ensure that people are thinking beyond just your organization's particular remit or focus. And so, for example, if you're an organization that's about environmental protection, that's great, and you can have some ideas on that, but we'd also like you to have other ideas that fit not just with environmental protection, because we don't want just ideas on environmental protection coming from environmental protection agencies, because everyone has a whole load of ideas that may not sit exactly with their organization's focus. And then last point, I guess, as we've tried to do in all our activities and everything we do, from our funky branding, our lovely set here, is make everything fun and engaging. So this is a really engaging topic. It's a way to get the public to speak about their hopes and fears, their opportunities and challenges that they see in their life, in their community, in Ireland or the world. And so keep it lighthearted, keep it fun, keep it engaging, and we're going to get some great ideas coming in from the public. Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you, we have great questions coming in. There's nothing you want to add before we go to a few questions? I think just to sum up, I guess, and say the supporting materials that I've constantly mentioned here are info guides. In those info guides, you'll get all the slides we've just run through. You'll get the chance to download the campaign logos, the campaign font. There's an info sheet you can share if you want to give people a quick piece of background on the campaign. There's a PowerPoint template that you can use yourselves. And there's the quick brainstorm slide deck and the full brainstorm slide deck that provides all the materials that you would need to run either of those brainstorms. Okay, brilliant. Well, Seamus, thank you for taking us through all of those practical steps on how the organisations can host sessions. We have had, as I said, some great questions throughout the session, so I'm going to invite Julie back to join us in answering some of your questions. But Seamus, I might come to you first on this one, because it is in relation to public engagement, and someone on the call today wants to know what is the best way for young people, so they're specifically saying people under the age of 18, to add their ideas then to the portal. Absolutely. So there is a data requirement around the people under the age of 16 are not allowed to submit ideas using the web platform. That's a data law. And I guess what we're conscious here is we still want to hear ideas from those people. Absolutely. And so what you can sometimes do is, if you're running a facilitated event, you can gather all the ideas from the participants at the event, and you can submit them on their behalf. Or if you have their parental permission or their guardian's permission, you're able to oversee their submission of the idea. So, for example, if you're running a youth club or a youth session and you have responsibility for the people under your care. For a group of young people, you could do it on their behalf. As long as you're with them, they can also submit with you, but you have to be the guardian there. Okay, that's really interesting and good to know, because I think, as you say, it's really important that we hear from young people. Julie, I might direct this question your way. The campaign will hopefully generate a large database of ideas. There will be a short list of ideas at the end of the campaign. What will happen to the remaining information? Are there plans to use it for other purposes?
So, Susan, the full list of submissions to the campaign will be published with the report in March of next year. And so that full list really does inform policy. The other thing that we can do is, of course, make available the submissions that arise out of your organisation's events. that each of you as stakeholder organisations can then use within your own community to I guess look at and make sure that you understand and you've captured feedback from your members too. And is there different ways that you can use that within your community, so that can also be made available.
Okay, perfect. Seamus, I'll jump back to you. Somebody is wondering, is there a map for the roadshow finalised? I'd love to see a countrywide spread of areas to visit, which covers urban, rural and border counties, etc. as well.
Absolutely. So we have a draft schedule, which you'll have seen us share there on the screen. What we're trying to make sure is that the roadshow reaches as many diverse areas of the country as possible. So we are reaching the 26 counties. We are trying to ensure that we go to a mixture of rural and urban locations within those counties, and all those exact stops are being finalised at the moment. So there's lots of work being done in the background on permissions from various councils and so forth in order to stop the coffee truck, and we'll be able to share that as soon as we can. So those update calls on Thursdays, we'll have further information at all times in those, and the emails that go out to people that sign up as a campaign champion on Fridays will also have information.
So it'll be easy to find out where we'll be on what
but rest assured,
day.
we are really conscious of going to as many different locations.
That is a key priority.
Absolutely, yeah.
Julie, I'll jump back to you. We need to ensure that there's a diverse range of researchers involved in any of the research carried out at the end of this process. This should be built into research policies being developed by government. So I guess that's not so much a question, but somebody who's pointing out the importance of that being the end result.
I couldn't agree more. I think this is, again, in the hearts and minds of many involved in this programme. It is, diversity and inclusivity in every context is so important in this campaign and in the outcomes. In fact, I recently had a conversation around how we ensure that, for example, topics like history, literature, humanities, that those kinds of topics, where do they play when we're thinking about, for example, the future of cities, back to, even what was in Seamus's idea. And even if they're not explicitly called out, of course they are hugely important, and research in those areas are hugely important. Science and technology can give us tools, and we all know that, and we've seen the impact of those tools. But I think what is also really important is that we use this as an opportunity to make sure that we bring with those tools the research about what makes us human, what actually informs how we build communities in the context of those great tools that science and technology give us. So for me, I fully agree with that comment, and for me, I think that diversity and inclusion in all aspects is so important in this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point to make. And there's another question similar to that. But Seamus, just to ask you, I think I know the answer to this, but somebody wondering, can we access a recording of this meeting later on today? That will be possible?
Absolutely. So we have the event being recorded. It'll be provided a link. It'll be Monday when it's sent round to everyone, but it will be available afterwards.
Okay, perfect. Another question in terms of making sure we reach everybody. So somebody is asking, what is the strategy to ensure that all the events and campaigns are accessible and inclusive, so that ideas from minority communities will be included in the overall campaign?
Absolutely. So as we've said, we are really conscious on including every aspect and every demographic and every segment of Irish society. And that's, I guess, where our stakeholder organisations come to the fore. So our events, by their nature in terms of a roadshow, will reach the audience that are around that location. We can't force people to come down to it, but I guess what we can do with working with our stakeholder organisations is ensure that we are working with groups that represent every aspect of Irish society. So what we're trying to make sure internally is we're ticking off and looking at those segments and saying, do we have an organisation that we can work with in order to reach that grouping of people, and where there are gaps, we'll reach out to organisations and we'll really push to make sure that we can activate through
Yeah,
them.
we'll actively do that.
Because I guess, sorry, just to clarify, I guess what's really important is that everyone on this call, all these stakeholder organisations have built up wonderful networks and membership of their organisations because they are experts in what they do.
So they have the engaged audience already, the ask is to reach out to them.
Exactly.
Somebody says, fascinating campaign, loving the public engagement element. How will the submission of ideas be evaluated, and can you provide a template to guide or inspire brainstorming sessions if I was to conduct one? Love action research and love the spirit and purpose of creating our future. So that's what we've gone through. That will be included in the pack for that person. I might jump back to Julie. This is an interesting one, Julie. Do you have any thoughts on managing expectations? When people engage enthusiastically and creatively with these types of activities, there can be disappointment when ideas are not actualised or if they cannot track the progression of their ideas, which is an interesting point and one worth addressing.
Absolutely. And I think managing expectations is really important. So I think first and foremost, what we're doing here is really informing policy on research and innovation, and every input contributes to informing that policy. I think for people who look at very specific ideas, if they don't see it addressed directly, I think understand that in the process, all ideas will have influenced a category of research or an aspect of that input to policy going forward. So I guess at this stage, it really is about having voices heard, understanding what is important to the people of Ireland in the context of doing research in Ireland going forward, and knowing going into this campaign that the outcome is to influence future direction. It's to identify those, and it may be at a category level of topics that are important to people, and every single input contributes to that.
Okay, and that is worth remembering, I guess, for everyone getting involved. Seamus, Westmeath PPN have been on. They say they'd love to have a speaker for their plenary meeting in November, and would also love to have a brainstorm at our 5 linkage group meetings in October. So I'm sure they will be in touch.
As a proud Athlone man,
yes?
I'm more than happy to be available for those.
We're all about the Midlands today on this session. We might take one final one. Seamus, as an organisation representing a particular group of people in society, we would want the research ideas generated through our meetings to connect to our strategic aims, which is fair enough. In the brainstorming sessions, can we direct people to think specifically about one particular area? This is leading, but equally we would want the research questions we put forward to relate to our work. So that's kind of understandable as well.
Absolutely, and so I think it's a dual purpose here, where we're completely cognizant that if you have membership and you have a particular area of focus as an organisation, you want ideas to be generated on that. And so I think you can ask kind of 2 questions at each of those points of the brainstorming. One is, within the remit of our particular organisation, what's your idea? And then, is there another idea from your personal community?
Okay, so possibly
so
2.
You can do it both ways.
2. Okay. Good news, somebody's been in touch to say they want to be a campaign champion for their community. So they're wondering, will everyone on the Zoom receive an info pack? Will there be a step-by-step guide to carrying out being the campaign champion? There will, of course.
Absolutely. So the info pack has the information there once you sign up. And once you sign up on that forum, we'll have an introductory call. We'll outline everything to you, and we'll touch base with you about organising events and about sharing all of our content with you.
Okay, I think we might have a final question that we want to get in. Oh no, we don't. That was the last one. We're out of time. But Seamus, thank you so much.
No
and
problem.
Julie, really thank you to you for staying on the line as well to help us get through some of those questions, which I think was really, really helpful to hear from the people on the call. That's all we've got time for today. But before we leave, we would love to encourage you to take 5 minutes to submit your idea on creatingyourfuture.ie. We would love to hear your ideas this morning. It's really simple. Just click the submit your idea button and fill in the very short form. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. I hope you're all as inspired as I am after that. Do spread the word. That's the big message about the campaign. Organise events with your members and networks, and brainstorm. Have the chat with your family and your friends, because really your involvement will make this campaign a success. We will be in touch, as we've said, on Monday with your info packs and a recording of today's event. But until then, thank you and enjoy the rest of your week.